Hello to all of my BPTV friends, YouTube friends, Facebook friends. I'm Alan Levine, the Talking Machine. I'm honored and blessed to be doing my 73rd Talking Machine show. I have another great guest. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Douglas Kavanaugh.
All right, I met Douglas at boxing matches and with some great guys, Mike McSorley, J.J. Richardson, and saw him with some young Ukrainian boxers. And we became friends. And we have a highlight of when I interviewed him, I think about 8 years ago at Atrius PNC Park. And guess what? He could out-talk the Talking Machine with stories. How's that for an intro, my friend? You ready?
Yeah, you set me up.
Okay, here we go. Where were you born?
I was born in Los Angeles.
You're an LA guy
I'm
original.
an LA guy originally, yeah. Actually, I'm a sixth-generation Californian.
You're kidding.
No, my grandfather was from San Francisco. I moved down to Los Angeles and had my
Where'd he
mom.
come from?
Frisco, San Francisco.
Yeah. How about originally? Where's your family come from?
Ireland.
There we go.
Ireland,
I figured you
yeah.
have some Irish history.
Ireland one side, Scotland on the other.
That's a great mix in America.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Scots-Irish here.
You do. They settled this place.
I know history. Yes,
They
sir.
settled this
That's why I'm
place.
bringing it up. And I'm Ukrainian and Hungarian, so I'm a different mix.
Yeah, yeah.
But we got that. So sixth generation LA. Where at in LA did you grow up?
Canoga Park, Woodland Hills area. It's in the West San Fernando Valley. I was
Okay.
actually born in Burbank,
Okay.
which is also in the San
No,
Fernando
we can
Valley.
cover that. This is about you.
It's
I
where
can't
the
make this
studios,
up.
where the
Yes.
studios and stuff are. But then we moved out to the West Valley. So
Okay.
it's where, Chatsworth. You ever see Boogie Nights?
Yes.
Or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, I have.
The whole Manson
You can drop
Ranch
all
and
these
everything.
movies. Yes.
Yeah, it's all West Valley right there.
So where'd you go to school?
Canoga Park High.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what'd you study in school?
In high school?
Yeah.
Everything they strapped me to the chair and made me study
Did you?
that I hated.
Well, I understand that.
The only
Did
thing
you-
I liked was literature. I liked books and
We'll
reading.
get into that. This is a
Yeah.
tease for a few minutes later on
Okay.
what he's done, and I got to compliment him on it.
If I counted my fingers, I couldn't come up with the same number twice.
Okay.
That's how bad I was at math. I just math. Is
That was
just
my
too-
strong suit.
Was it
1
math?
+ 1 = 2, and I expanded on that.
But once division, my brain just stopped. Said that's it. That's all we're
Some
learning."
people are like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't want to learn anymore.
Yeah. English, believe it or not, was one of my weakest subjects.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, and I'm a good talker and a reader. So how did
Yeah.
that happen?
You made up for it.
Yeah, so that happened. So did you play any sports?
Wrestling, and I tried football in my senior year, but
Yeah.
I didn't reach my athletic prime until my physical prime until I was like 19, 20, 21.
A little
right in
later.
there. Yeah, I was kind of a late bloomer.
No,
So
that
I remember the year
happens.
after high school being like, God, I wish I had one more year. I'm like so much faster now and so
No,
much.
it was weird, like having kids. They would tell you, don't put your kid in the kindergarten till as late as you can for
Yeah.
sports. Like even with my daughter, played fast pitch softball, and we
Yeah.
just put them in the normal times. And my son would go, Dad, some of these kids are a year and a half older than me, and they're bigger. He's 6'1" now, and 200
Yeah.
some pounds. But he saw that, and I saw it with the kids. And only after I graduated did I see some of these kids that held back. I'm like, wow, they're like 6 months younger than me, and now they're a senior, and
Yeah.
they're much bigger.
Yeah, I wasn't a jock per se.
Yeah.
I played some sports, but I wasn't a jock.
Yeah.
I was more of just a.
Well,
I flitted around with everybody. I got along with everyone.
yeah, you have that personality.
Yeah, I try.
No, you're good at it. I appreciate
try.
you. Well, I got to ask, since you're a California surfer, when and how did you get started with surfing?
It just sort of comes with the territory. You live
Just
in
being
Southern
there.
California, you're going to eventually end up at least trying how to surf.
Hit
And
the wave, man.
Yeah, and I just fell in love with it and the culture of it and the history of it.
How old were you then?
I got a late start. I mean, I tried when I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
But I could never get up. Nobody taught me. And finally, when I was in my 20s, I just said, I got to teach myself. Nobody's going to teach me this. So I just went out. I drowned for 2 years.
You did it on your own.
Yeah. I was trying to impress a girl
Isn't that what it's
who
about?
was a surfer. Yeah, but then the funny thing is I never went surfing with her. I got, oh, wait, this is about me. I like this. I like this. I noticed that I like it. So I forgot about her and just
Yeah.
kept on surfing. And then I started teaching it. I was a surfing instructor for many years.
Wow.
For like troubled teens and stuff.
That is great. Well,
Yeah.
I missed, did you go to college since you were in literature?
I was too busy learning to go to college.
Okay. You were educating
That sounds
yourself with
snobby.
life.
Yeah, well, reading, writing, it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay,
Don't get me
so-
started on college.
So now you're teaching, kids and stuff like that, and disabled children.
Yeah, kids with troubled teens, yeah. I saw more therapy in one session in that water with the kids than an entire
It'd help
month at
them
a
out.
psych hospital, yeah.
No, I believe in that stuff.
It's great. Just
Definitely.
engaging them, The greatest compliment I ever got was one kid. He was this Latino gang member, really kind of hard and
Whoa.
cool. And he says to me, when I do this, I don't even want to smoke weed anymore. I was like, thank you. I don't even want to smoke weed anymore.
Greatest
It was the
compliment.
best.
No,
It's
that
just-
is
he
great.
gets it, yeah.
And how was your surfing skills then after drowning for 2 years?
They got better. I was able to ride the nose and cross
on.
step. And I got pretty good at it. I wasn't, Butch Van Artstalen, but I was
I've heard about him.
I
and-
was okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to win any contests, but I enjoyed it.
So you went to different surfing events and you got to
yeah.
meet people. How cool was that?
It was great. It was great. And you realized how many famous people were surfers.
Right.
Peter Lawford from the Rat Pack.
I remember him.
Robert Conrad. James Arness, Marshall Matt Dillon. All
I didn't
7
know
feet,
that.
7 foot tall dude, yeah. He was a surfer back in the 40s when there were redwood boards. In San Onofre, yeah. He was surfing with the pioneers.
That's
in
some
California.
serious surfing.
His son, Rolf Arness, was the 1970 world surf champion.
I didn't know that. I missed that.
Yeah, a lot of famous, and a lot of, there's a lot of surfers. Rob Lowe, he's a big surfer.
Right.
Sean Penn,
Yeah, I heard about Sean Penn. Yeah.
all surfers.
James Arness, I missed that.
Yeah, you can go online and look it up.
I am after this show. You piqued my interest there, my
James Arness.
friend.
Marshall Matt Dillon was a surfer.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what were you doing to make money then?
teaching.
Get out-
Writing, freelance writing, back when you
Yeah.
had magazines and stuff.
And
boxing
what did you write?
magazines. Just whatever interested me. Boxing, organized crime, surfing history, just esoteric histories.
I like that choice of verbiage.
Yeah, esoteric histories.
I understand it. For all of them, look it up and then research a little because you hear he's almost like a Renaissance man, which you don't hear.
Oh, boy.
I can throw those compliments out.
Can ya?
Well, I'm a
Setting
reader
me
and know a bunch of things, and they go, "What haven't you done, and what haven't you read?" And I go, "I'm still learning.
Yeah, I mean, it's the histories that don't get documented that interest
I'm
me.
all about it."
It's like, that's how that started. That's how the Butch Van Artstalen story, which is another book I wrote,
Yeah,
started.
tell us a little bit about that, because when you mentioned his name,
Butch?
yes,
Butch, he was the first Mr. Pipeline, for those of you that saw Blue Crush. I mean,
yes, I did.
The Bonsai Pipeline, which at the time was the most dangerous wave in the world. Everybody was terrified of the
I
Bonsai.
watched that, yes.
Yeah. And Butch was like the first pipeline master. But I'd heard about him and I'd seen the old surf videos.
Sure.
He died at 38 from complications
I
of
remember-
alcohol abuse.
yeah.
And I worked in rehab centers long enough to know that
So
it
it
takes
hit you right hard.
well, it takes a long time. I mean, it usually takes a long time to drink yourself to death, and to do it, to conk your liver out at 38, just made me go, what was this guy running from?
right.
So I just got really curious about him. But while he was here in the 60s, he was a huge star. And
Yeah.
if they made a movie about my book, on his life,
I hope so.
yeah, me too. If they did, it would be basically Animal House meets Leaving Las Vegas.
I love that.
Yeah, if you mix those two
Both.
stories.
I like both.
Our
yeah.
wild youth and then our slow descent into oblivion.
Yeah.
Which it's a sad tale, but he saved a lot of lives and he
Well,
was a huge star and
Sure.
huge surf star.
And imagine the athlete that he was.
Yeah.
See, that's what gets lost in some of this stuff when they're stars.
Yeah.
They're actually great athletes that work hard to do that.
The Boston Red Sox wanted him to give him a contract. Baseball. He was a great baseball player at La Jolla High
I wanted
School.
to find that out. You see how I dig deep?
Yeah.
Because
La
I
Jolla
always
High.
look behind when somebody does something and they're very good and they're athletic. What else did you do? Because you're going to get into that.
There are so many roads like that I went down when I was researching that book.
I'll bet.
I
Give us a few because we're going to move on.
He was part of the Duke Kahanamoku surf team. The Duke is the father of modern surfing, the Duke.
Right.
The Duke of
Back in the
Waikiki.
day, yes.
Yeah, well, their manager, the Duke manager, was a fellow by the name of Kimo McVeigh, who
Yeah.
was also Don Ho's manager, the musician
Okay,
Don
yeah.
Ho. his father, it turns out, I interviewed him just before he passed. His father, it turns out, was the captain of the USS Indianapolis. Now, if you saw Jaws, Captain Quint tells the story.
Yes.
They delivered the Hiroshima bomb, and
Yes.
then they got torpedoed. They went down. The sharks
I'm a
ate
huge
them all.
history guy. So
Yeah,
yes.
the sharks ate them all. But his dad was the
The guy.
was the captain. Yeah.
Wow.
Chemo luckily lived long enough to see his father get exonerated because he was court-martialed.
Sure.
I think he was like the only court-martial major
Right.
guy was court-martialed by. Even the Japanese sub-commander testified at his court-martial saying, you know, he didn't do anything wrong, but they needed a scapegoat. Yeah, he ended up committing suicide,
Well,
unfortunately.
we won't get into government and things like that.
Yeah.
And people look for trouble. And,
Yeah.
How about just doing what's right?
Yeah,
My thing is just
exactly.
do what's right, and you'll find out solutions to it. No,
Yeah.
that's great.
So I've just found out, you know, and Butch went to high school with Raquel Welch. She was
Yeah.
a cheerleader when he was playing football. And
Wow.
there's just all these really interesting little side tales.
Isn't it amazing how it's a spider web
Yeah.
of connections?
Yeah.
That's what I love reading about history, even from thousands of years ago, because we haven't really changed much since they started officially writing about 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So it gets deep there. No, thanks for sharing that out west.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now you mentioned boxing. What piqued your interest in boxing?
I mean, I've liked it since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's what I-
watching Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran fight each other. You know, you grew up with Muhammad Ali, of course. I mean, that was
Yes.
like a family event to gather on the TV and watch Muhammad Ali.
Right, just like my dad used to watch Friday night fights.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little older and stuff, so
Right.
we had that.
Yeah.
And you know, I'd hear a lot of boxing in the area. And
Yeah.
I told you a classic story. I had a gentleman knock on our door, and he had a broken like nose, cauliflower ears, and he goes, "Is Saul Levine here?" And I go, "That's my dad." He goes, "Tell him his cousin Doogie's here." He was a boxer, and we don't know. I'm not sure of his last name. I think I had a couple choices on it. One might have been Gawler, like a Gohler, and I didn't know his first name. But my dad came out, Cousin Doogie, they're hugging and all that. Me and my three sisters were probably like 7, and four of us are in 5 years. My little baby sister's like, "Who's this strange man?" And he went out of the house, and he goes, "How long is it?" We go, "About 1.5 miles." He went out and ran. Then he goes, "Hey kids, I'm going to shadow box." He shadow boxed for like a half an hour.
Wow.
And then he pulls out, he's showered up and all that. He pulls out a big leather briefcase. He goes, "I live in Galveston and I sell vitamins." He pulled out every known vitamin. This is in the 60s, early 60s, known to man. That piqued my interest because I'm thinking he's 70 years old, looks beat up, and he's alive selling vitamins.
Right.
I started taking one a days and stuff like that and got supplements, and my whole life I donate, you know, I acknowledge Kid Doogie inspired me with vitamins.
Right.
And we tried to find out, my dad, he was the baby of the family. He knew about him and knew he fought maybe in the 20s or something. And my dad was born in 31, so there's a little difference in age, 20,
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah.
But we never found out, so future research.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it just, like with surfing and Butch's story,
Yeah,
when I get into something, I get into the history of it.
you're
So
going deep.
Yeah, so invariably, boxing history started to interest me.
Yeah,
And so I started freelance writing for boxing magazines back in the 90s.
you did that. You
Back-
just reached out to him, said, "Here's what I can do."
Yeah. Just sent
I
it. Burt,
like
Burt
your
Randolph
stuff.
Sugar.
Yeah.
He published one of my first pieces, which was great. You know.
What an honor.
Yeah, it really was.
You're
And
pumping
everybody
me
knew-
up.
It was great. You know,
That's
he was a
why
nice
I wanted
fellow.
to interview you, Doug.
Yeah, yeah. He was one of my first bosses, I guess you could say.
Yeah, one of
Published.
them.
He published for Boxing Illustrated. But anyways, eventually, and I think I mentioned this the first time you interviewed me, but I'll do it again.
Yeah. That's all right, because that's on the separate Pittsburgh Sportsline award-winning
Yeah,
show. This is
yeah.
the Talking Machine show.
I noticed that a very large number of boxers, historical
I do
boxers,
remember, yeah.
I admired were from Pittsburgh. So I kind of went, well, okay, what's in the water there?
Well, that's why I wasn't going to ask it. I needed you to tell that.
Yeah. So I decided I'm going to get a book on Pittsburgh boxing. I looked and there was none. I found Philadelphia, I found New York, I found Los Angeles, I found Boston, I found Baltimore, I found
Yeah.
Chicago. Every major city had a book on its boxing history except Pittsburgh, which was crazy consider how many champions and top contenders
Right.
came from here and Hall of Famers. So I said, okay, I guess it's up to me.
No, that was like so bizarre meeting you and you talking about that.
Yeah.
And you just knew about all these boxers mentioning names, and I grew up with them.
It was great because I mean their stories were they were told and you could find them, but they weren't compiled.
Tell me a story that you remember then that piqued your interest. Do you have one, like a short one that got you thinking about the Pittsburgh boxing?
Oh, jeez.
Like a name or?
Harry Greb.
Okay. And that's like a mystery man here when I was growing up in the 70s.
Yeah, you don't even have a bridge named after him. He's
No.
probably your greatest athlete.
We didn't hear about him until I met Mike McSorley
Yeah.
with Con Greb.
Right.
Billy Con we heard about, Harry Windmill Greb.
You can
I
make a
didn't
case
hear
for
about it.
Greb being the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time. You can't make that case for like Pittsburgh baseball's got a great history, but you can't say a Pittsburgh baseball, a Pirate was the greatest ever.
Right.
Nobody's going to put him above Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb or those.
Honus Wagner was in the first class.
Yeah,
But-
you can make a case for him being top 10, but
Yeah.
not number one.
Right.
Football, you can't make a case of anybody over Jim Brown or Jerry Rice. You know, you got some Pittsburgh guys high up there like Joe Green.
Well,
and
our
Jack
water's good for athletes here. The
Yeah,
Three Rivers.
yeah.
We got 6
Yeah.
Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the
But you-
NHL, and we had all these champions.
Yeah.
Tell them how many champions we had out of the belts. Or didn't we have like 4 of the champion belts at the time?
You had 5 of 8.
Okay,
Not
that's I missed it.
simultaneously, but over a 5-year period in the late 30s and early 40s.
That's
Five
what
of
I
the
wanted to
8
bring up. I thought it was
divisions. There were
4.
only 8 weight divisions in boxing back then. There
Exactly.
wasn't junior this or super that. And there was a time where 5 of the 8 champs were from Pittsburgh, which is, over, like I said, over us. It's phenomenal. It's incredible.
To me, it's so amazing. I'm Pittsburgh centric. Never even knew about it.
Yeah.
And I worked for the Pittsburgh Press Post-Gazette, knew the sports writers.
Roy McKee was a friend of mine. He lived to be 104 years old.
I met him, and my dad was friends with him.
I knew him well. He was like a mentor to me. He was great. But even some of the names I brought up in here, he had never even heard of, like Wee Willie Davies, the uncrowned flyweight king.
Oh, yeah.
Jack McClelland, who beat the heck out of Abe Patel, the
Look
featherweight
at-
champion.
look at-
Couldn't get a title shot because of it.
Look at our friend Vince Ciarmella's
Yeah.
a great-grandson of him.
Yeah.
Wrote a great book on him. But no, that's no
Willie
Roy.
Davies should be in the Hall of Fame. He beat like 4 champions, and none of
Right.
them would put their title on the line against him. Wee Willie, he was from here.
Yeah.
So
No, it's amazing stuff what I've learned, and I'm just so proud to have you on here telling these stories and stuff.
Well, it's a lost history, like I said. I mean, there's bridges named after everybody except for maybe the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time.
Right, and we
Harry
got
Greb.
John O'Prasek's painting of Pittsburgh right here, so we're Pittsburgh-centric here.
Yeah.
And he puts Monongahela sand, because guess what? We all drink that water. You know what's in sand, not just the fish poop, but sand and stuff.
Yeah, and the potential for glass. Indeed.
And cars and bodies and everything
And body,
else.
yeah,
we can't
everything
get
else.
through those stories. I could tell you off air a couple.
I bet.
Definitely. We'll cover that later.
Okay.
Yeah, so what brought you out to Pittsburgh?
I just got everything I needed out of Los Angeles. I lived there my whole life, and it's really gone. I won't go into the politics of it.
Yeah.
It's really gone downhill politically. It's very dangerous. The
Yeah.
politicians have really failed us there, and it just didn't have anything more for me.
Well,
And Pittsburgh did.
Yeah, to sound off a little bit, I'm a big history guy, and I gave up on both parties for 40 years because I pay taxes, I vote. Sometimes I think about not voting, but that's my right,
Yeah.
and we got away from it. So that's our little political
Yeah.
little blurb.
Yeah.
We're going to move on because we got positive stuff here about Pittsburgh and Doug
Well, it's
with
just
boxing.
it's a healthier city.
Thank you.
It's got an amazing history that fascinates me. I like the people.
Yeah.
It's just healthier. You're just missing an ocean. That's the only thing that I'm struggling with.
Well, I just told Doug on Saturday, we met at Boxing Integrity Fight Management at the Meadows. Great fights. 2 of my best friends that are boxers got knocked out. Won't mention their name, but I told them, you got to miss, surfing. I said, go to Erie. A friend of mine, 25 years old, he just was up there last weekend surfing.
See, I'm a coastal creature by birth, by nature. So it's like-
6th generation.
yeah, so
We can't get that out of the
yeah,
blood.
it can't. You can't. It's like Rocky said, if you live in a place long enough, you start to become that place.
Welcome to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of Pittsburgh in me now too. It's been a couple of years.
Right. You don't have the north side downtown type
No,
of talk yet.
and I never will.
Yeah,
Just like I don't have the Valley Boy talk from Los Angeles. If I talk like that, please shoot me.
Okay.
You know, that song was accurate, by the way, the Valley Girl. Totally accurate.
no,
and everybody stopped talking like that as soon as that song came out.
Well,
as soon as she
sure.
made fun of him, it was like, oops.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that works?
Gag me with a spoon. I knew girls who said that. As soon as Moon Unit Zappa made fun of it,
Wow.
it was
I didn't know it
a
stopped.
deafening silence.
Oh, wow.
It was
that
such
is
a
so
silence.
cool.
Barf out, all of it just stopped.
Wow.
It was like Eddie Murphy in Raw when he made fun of those new wave dances. Everybody stopped doing it.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It was so
No,
when you go to the dance place, it's like,
it's
everybody
amazing.
stopped. What are they doing?
I know. No, that is so cool. So you've been here in Pittsburgh how long now?
2 years, going into my third year. Got here in
Congrats on
22.
that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you've acclimated yourself here. And
Yeah. I like seasons. You guys have seasons here. It's really
well,
nice.
I'll just share with you. I appreciate the 4 seasons,
Yeah.
but the last 10, 15 years, spring has only been 1 week, and we get into summer. Like you can see a little variance of it,
Yeah.
but I'm old school. Snow in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
you had to shovel all the time, and it would pile up feet. Now, I think I shoveled once last year.
Oh, jeez.
So there's a difference, but I enjoy it. Look at the fall day we have here.
Yeah.
The foliage is changing colors, and you know.
You don't get this in Los Angeles.
No, and isn't it enjoyable
Yeah.
when you actually see that change?
Yeah. It's still margarita weather and around Christmas.
Right, right.
There's no pumpkin spice latte weather. It's
No,
margarita weather all up until
Hey,
January.
pumpkin spice come out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're
But
a
it
little
feels
early.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference in the two cities, and they both have their strong points. But
Well-
this one just really, I'm really enjoying it.
No, that is great. Here you have a Cali surfer enjoying Pittsburgh, PA. We got to dig into these books.
Okay.
Put your first boxing book up, because
Oh.
when you brought that out there, I got it, and I give it a 5-star recommendation.
Okay.
Check it out.
And give Harry Greb at least a bridge named after him. He's more than
know.
earned. He's probably I can argue him being Pittsburgh's greatest athlete.
We'll take you before Pittsburgh Council to do it.
And I will argue that he was Pittsburgh's greatest athlete.
I'll
He
set
was-
up the case as a talking machine, and I'll say, I recommend this guy.
How many boxers can you name that he was middleweight champion of the world,
Right.
who was the #1 contender in 3 divisions simultaneously?
Right there.
Heavyweight, light heavyweight, and middleweight, and couldn't get a title shot with any of them because they were all ducking him.
Well, his style was so different.
Yeah.
And his athleticism and shape were off the charts.
Tireless.
He could have fought like the old timers 100 rounds.
Well, also you got to remember. I mean, as you know, this used to be the Smoky City. I mean,
Yes.
it was just pollution everywhere. And
Right.
he's training in that.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're developing lungs of steel. So when he has to fight in New York or Chicago, it's like heaven.
He's going like, that's
yeah,
nothing.
it's nothing. And after 15 rounds, he's just getting started, and everybody else
Right.
is gassed out. And he threw punches from so many different angles, and he was called the Pittsburgh Windmill.
Imagine that.
Punches never stopped coming.
Imagine
at you.
that was a secret till I heard about Con Greb boxing with Mike McSorley. Then I started reading it on it, and I go, wow. And then I met you, and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
unreal.
Well, he didn't. And again, you mentioned earlier on how your dad grew up with the Gillette Friday Night Fights.
Yeah.
That was before his time. See, back then that made everyone a star because they were in your living room. They were right there. You got to know them. You saw them. Sugar Ray Robinson,
Right.
Kid Gavilan, all
Right.
even the contenders became stars.
Well, I'll share this with you. I got into boxing because I had friends fighting Golden Gloves and all that. I was too pretty to get hit. I wasn't Muhammad Ali, so I'm not the brightest guy, but I played center on the football team, and I got hit in the head on every play with a helmet.
Oh, jeez.
And I was a pitcher, so I didn't get hit. I would hit them or strike them out.
Okay.
But I started reading about Sugar Ray Robinson
Yeah.
and his pink Cadillac and how good he was. Up until now, I've said he was the best pound-for-pound fighter. That was my analogy and my opinion of what I read and who he fought and going to Europe
Yeah.
and everything he did there and battling racism.
Right.
And that's a part of all of this because I read about Jack Johnson
Yeah.
because I'm like, first black heavyweight, why wasn't that talked about?
Well, he's still a controversial figure.
Well, he made it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a
We won't get into
controversial-
that,
yeah.
but you can check there, but Sugar Ray Robinson was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. And we had a fellow named Charlie Burley who, common opponents considered him just as good. It's just he wasn't as consistent as Robinson. Robinson, even when he wasn't fighting somebody spectacular, was still spectacular. He always brought his A game.
No, that's what enticed me with reading it.
Yeah.
Because of how his level was so much above.
Right. And he was just so consistent. He was a consistently exciting performer.
Right.
So anyway, when he came here, Rooney McGinley, Art Rooney, before the Steelers. Well, no, it was after the Steelers. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the Rooney McGinley boxing club, Art Rooney used him a lot before he became champ, and he packed him in.
Oh,
he loved fighting for Rooney McGinley.
That was what was weird about not having the history of that here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Just like with Art Rooney, we only thought him as, the old man, Art Rooney.
No.
He was a great baseball player. He was a great boxer. He was a great athlete. Great bookmaker, everything.
He was the watchdog for, you mentioned Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, there's a fellow named Joe Koyinski.
Oh, I didn't know.
You didn't have a light heavyweight division back when Koyinski fought at the turn of the century. So
Right.
if you were above 158 pounds, you were a heavyweight. You had
Yeah.
no choice. Koyinski knocked out Jack Johnson with one punch, and it was an illegal prize fight in Texas, and they got thrown in prison. And in prison, he showed Jack how to do better defense and stuff. He tutored him, basically.
Really?
Upon retirement, Koyinski came here and taught at the PAA.
No way.
One of his students was Art
Now
Rooney.
this is great history.
One of his students was a young fighter named Art Rooney.
Wow.
And it's in my book here.
I know.
Rooney was his watchdog. If he thought a kid was a little too cocky or was wasting his time, he'd say, "Hey, Artie, go in there and spar with that kid." And Rooney would beat the hell out of the kid.
No, and they're like,
nicely.
who is this
Rooney
guy?
was a nice guy, but
Yeah.
he just beat the blazes just to see what the guy was made of.
Right.
And if it was worth Joe Koyinski's time,
Yeah.
Art would show. And if
And
he wasn't,
imagine-
Art would knock him out.
Right, and imagine all of us Art Rooney Sr. fans hearing what a great athlete he was, because we only sold him as an old man owner of the Steelers, hiring his drunken friends as the coaches, and they never won.
So the day he died, he could have laid you out.
Oh, I
You
believe
wouldn't
it.
have guessed it because he
Yeah.
was so, he was a meek, humble man.
Right.
But if he cut
God-fearing
loose,
guy.
if he cut
Yeah.
loose, he could have. But yeah, he was Koyinski's watchdog at the PAA.
That is so interesting.
Joe was really cantankerous, and Art was happy-go-lucky, so they were a good pair.
Good combo.
He said, "Art,
Yeah.
these kids get on my nerves. Go."
And look at, with me liking horse racing,
yeah.
found out Art Rooney was a bookmaker at the
Yeah.
horse racing. Not that there's fixed races, but I've heard it. And I owned horses at the Meadows and witnessed it. But when he won the $3,000 on a horse and then ended up founding the Steelers,
Yeah.
I'm like, what a connection! A bookmaker at horse racing.
Yeah.
And I'm owning horses in the '83 on. I owned race horses at the Meadows.
Okay.
And I got a classic story. There was Delvin Miller, there was Joe DiMaggio, and there was Stan Musial betting. And they're up there sitting there, and I'm a baseball guy, and I go, should I ask them? I go, no. They had stacks of losing tickets all around. Baseball players and all that like to gamble on the horses. It's a little off boxing, but I got to see that with them there.
Wow.
And that's so cool. So when you bring up these side stories.
Well, it's funny. Here's a side story for you. You bring up DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Joe DiMaggio grew up in San Francisco. His neighbor was Fred Apostoli, the middleweight champ.
Yeah.
Okay,
I figure you have a
two Italian boys. So when Fred Apostoli, the Italian boy, fought the Irishman from Pittsburgh, Billy Conn.
Yeah.
Billy Conn's best friend was one of his close friends was a fellow named Archie Vaughan, who's a Hall of Fame shortstop.
Right,
great. Who doesn't get the credit because he's overshadowed by another famous shortstop named Honus Wagner.
Exactly.
Archie Vaughan was one of the greatest, shortstops ever.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in one corner you have Conn, and rooting for him over here is Archie Vaughan. In this corner you have Joe DiMaggio, rooting for him down there in the stands is another Hall of Famer, DiMaggio.
No, that is a great story.
something?
That's a topper there.
Yeah.
This time has blown by. We got about less than a minute to go.
Whoa, yeah.
Could we get your second book up here? Because you got to get his books.
Yeah.
And he mentioned about Art Rooney.
This one is
in there.
Pittsburgh Boxing, a pictorial history. This is about the fighters. And this is Pittsburgh Boxing, a collected history. This is the latest one, and this is
And
about
that's
the fights.
the distinction. You got to get
Yeah.
both books,
The
either
fights.
order.
Yeah, this is about the fights and it tells the story of Rooney and Koyinski and all that stuff. So
I loved it.
Yeah,
Getting
it's
it out
great.
for my people without me asking. You were perfect as a guest.
Thank you.
No,
very
I
much.
appreciate it. And you got the Talking Machine recommendation, both books.
Both books.
We'll get them. Let's both hold them up. And we'll have you look at that one. And thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Hey,
This was great.
Always a pleasure.
And to all of you, hope you enjoyed this interview. I'll be back for number 74 in a couple weeks. See you then.